So there's that common phrase in the dog training or just in general in public about dogs that want to bark and go off at other dogs, people, that kind of thing. It's actually a defense response. It's aggression. There's different and varying degrees of aggression with it. It's typically labeled as reactivity. It's kind of one of my least favorite terms, although we will use it on occasion because it seems to be what everybody understands. They think, well, my dog sees other dogs and he blows up. For me, a lot of that is a lot more about activity or learned or innate response in the dog that they've practiced and they just get better and better and better at. So if you have a dog that likes to, blow up and bark at other dogs or people, noises, things like that, it's a defense response. He's usually trying to make something go away, make himself, appear more scary. A lot of times you'll see the hackles come up, dogs will turn sideways. They look pretty aggressive about it. And I hate, kind of, for me anyway, that it's called reactivity. Half of these dogs, or probably more like 90% of these dogs that I see that people are labeling as reactive, are actually, before they even walk out the door, the trigger or the leash becomes the trigger. They're like, hey, we're going to go outside and look for stuff to bark at. So actually the dog's kind of on a mission. It's more of an activity for the dog. It's like, hey, this is what we do together. You take me out, I drag you around, and I bark at everything I see. So for me, that's a lot less about being reactive than it is about being active. They're actively out there seeking something to bark at. So with a lot of the dogs that I get a lot of these really high drive, working style, they're type dogs, German Shepherds, Malinois, even a lot of the Corsos and some of the Boribles. And they tend to want to do the same thing, right? It's pretty much in every dog. There's a defense response in every dog. Some of us been played out more, some do it a lot more than others, but they don't have to. And obedience helps for sure. There's a lot of things that we do with dogs and show them what to do. A lot of dogs just don't know what to do. We're out on the leash and it's more of a two people on the same leash but disconnected. The only thing that's holding them together is the leash. The dog's busy sniffing, watching, looking at everything out there on the planet, but not really connected with their handler. So that's one thing I see real often. And those dogs just feel happy-go-lucky about going off on everything. Anytime that you keep repeating that or doing that same thing over and over and over, you're just basically reinforcing the thing that you don't want, which is your dog blowing up at other dogs in that defense response. So how I change that with a lot of these dogs. I get a lot of the dogs that I have right now are for my personal dogs or dogs that I've collected because they had big time aggression issues, right? They're human biting and going off on people and everything else. And they're mastiffs. So some of these big working mastiffs like my Boribles and Corsos and these band dog things, they have a pretty good strong defense response. It ain't reactivity. It's I want to go out and load off on stuff. I'm looking for things to load off on. A lot of times that's focused at dogs and other times it's focused at people, but it's something that I don't really work on that thing and try to stop them from blowing up at people or dogs. What I try to do is give them an activity that they enjoy more, and I make it part of our routine. So a lot of them, they have a lot of prey drive. So they have these different drives, right? You got your social drive, prey drive, defense drive, and even fight drive in a lot of these dogs. And some are more pronounced than others. A lot of them, the ones that are reactive, are really that defense is shining through. We get some that are intense with it, even as puppies. And that can be worked through. We've got a little German Shepherd that we're working with right now, one of our great clients. And he's doing a really good job. We've had to do a lot of things with her and give her other activities to do because that is her favorite thing. It's an activity that she really enjoys, which is barking at other dogs and people. She has bitten before. So giving my dog something else to do, an activity. I start playing with my dogs and I have a very specific way that I play with them. It can be tug, it can be like a chase and catch kind of thing. Basically fetch like people do. There's certain ways that I do it. It's a mixture of different ways that I've learned from other great trainers over the years. And I'm going to tell you, all of my dogs can handle other dogs, people. They will basically just ignore them. And I never once focused on the reactivity. I focused on what to do and activities that we could do together that were very enjoyable. This can take some time. Early on, I do all these things outside of all the distractions and other problems. If I do that, it allows me and my dog to connect and really get basically an addiction or habit of that activity. And it's what we do together. It is us. Again, most people are taking and going out with their dogs, and a lot of people are telling them, hey, take them out on a walk. That's how you get rid of their activity. And there are prong collars and e-collars and all these kind of things trying to stop the dog from being reactive when it happens. So realistically, where the reactivity is coming from, it's the human. You're not being proactive about it. You're being reactive. Because you're waiting for the dog to blow up, and then you're like, ah, or waiting for him right before he blows up. I rarely ever focus on that. If I'm out with a dog that's been doing pretty good and then they go off a little bit, maybe I'll take care of that right then and there, but that's not going to be my practice. I'm going to get them out of that situation and go back to work, building activities that we enjoy together and just kind of creating a whole new reality for me and my dog. I've got a bunch of big, scary dogs, and they can all handle just about anything, anywhere, anytime. And it's not because of control tools. Most of mine are off leash, most of in general, or they're just on a simple flat or slip collar. I don't use prong collars on a regular basis. Electronic collars we'll use sometimes for out in the field and things like that, but I don't really use it for my reactivity in general. There's times where I will. There's certain dogs where that will help quite a bit. But it's something, again, that we created away from these triggers that cause the dog to activate. So again, it's not really reactivation, or reactivity. It's they're activating. They're looking for those things. They know they're a trigger. They know they're going to get that adrenaline high from blowing off at these other dogs. So that's my little TED talk on this. It really is a lot of times obviously it's going to be the genetic component, how defensive or how much defense comes out in that dog, but it's also a lot of learned behavior stuff with these dogs. It's practice. They've practiced these things over and over and over. It's kind of the same thing we do if we're doing bite work and protection work. We show the dog the context that we do these things in, and the dog learns that, oh, well, guy in sleeve and suit, and he cracks his whip or his clatter stick. That's where I go, rah, and I get to bark and bark and bark at the guy, and maybe if I'm lucky, that'll let me bite him. You're doing kind of the same thing when you're out running around with your dog all over public. When you know he's going to blow off at everything, and then you're going to try to stop him with the leash and collar or whatever tools you're using, a lot of times you're actually just adding to the mix, and you're kind of adding fuel to that fire. The way I see a lot of people doing it, like I see my own students doing it on occasion when they're out practicing, and I have to get back on them and let them know. Be real careful about what you're telling your dog, because you could be more of the problem than you think. Anyway, that's my TED Talk on it. I like to call it just a defensive response. A lot less of calling it reactivity if I could, because I think usually the human is the one that's being more reactive than the dog. That's all for now.